Welcome to the H.E.A.L, Help, Elevate, and Learn podcast. This podcast is a guide to healing your inner child and maturing your inner adult. This is the place where we slow down, look within, and begin the journey of restoring what was lost, silenced, or forgotten. Here, we believe that healing the inner child is not about reliving the past, it's about rewriting your future. Together, we'll uncover the wisdom, the strength, and the love you've always carried inside. So take a deep breath. You're safe, you're seen, and you're right where you need to be. Hello, everybody. How you doing today? This is Sakoni Prince of SakoniPrince.com, where we make motivation personal, introducing you to yourself. And I want to welcome you to the H.E.A.L podcast. H.E.A.L is an acronym for Help, Elevate, and Learn, and it's based on my latest book by the same title. The subtitle is A Guide to Healing Your Inner Child. I am currently in the process of finalizing the sequel to that, which is by the same title, but the subtitle is A Guide to Maturing Your Inner Adult. And I can't tell you how excited I am to share this information with you. And our guest tonight, I know is going to be amazing. But we have to take a minute to thank our sponsor, which is none other than BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable, it is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal or choose Sakoni Prince Heal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. Again, we want to thank BetterHelp for being a sponsor of this amazing podcast. And I'm telling you, I am super excited to actually bring our guest up. I recently met her, and her name is Regina Martin, but I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about who she is and why you should pay attention to her. Regina, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine, Dr. Price or Dr. Prince. Lord, it's been a long day.
I know. It's been a long week.
That part. My name is Regina Martin. I am the founder of Dare to Dream Motivational Speaking and Coaching, LLC. My platform works with high school students transitioning from high school to college, and I also work with women to help them to define their goals, and both parties jointly together, helping them to define what the next chapter of their professional, academic, and personal lives would look like. And it's a pleasure to be here, so thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. And believe me, like I said earlier, it's been a long week. But thankfully, we made it to the end. And now we're going to top it off by having this amazing podcast.
I'm ready.
Okay, so our first question, it says, what does maturing your inner adult mean to you? And how has that shown up in your personal journey?
Well, I found that question to be very interesting because of the fact that a lot of times we draw from the memories of our past to help us to define who we are currently.
Right.
And I come from a family of three. I have two younger brothers. I'm the oldest child. I'm the only girl. So you know what that means. I got spoiled. But my family, my parents, they raised us in a small town in Connecticut. They worked a blue collar job. Everything was pretty straightforward and to the point. And when I tell people as I was growing up, where I grew up, they were like, oh, you guys must be rich. No, my parents worked a 9 to 5 or 7 to 3, like anybody else, just to make sure that we had everything that we needed. But I will say that a lot of my memories about my childhood have definitely played a role in my life now, especially being a wife and a mom.
Hmm.
I find myself mirroring some of the things that my mom used to tell me.
Right.
Pour that into my kids. But I have to say, looking at me and looking at the challenges that I've had, the journeys that I've been on, and the
Hmm.
accomplishments that I've made, I've had some hurt moments in my life. I had some challenges where I didn't feel like I fit in. I
Mm.
felt like I had to overcompensate who I was to fit in with the people that I was hanging around.
Right.
And in some cases, I felt like I was hurt because people didn't accept me for who I was for face value. And because I didn't have an older sister or, older person to kind of lean to,
Hmm.
those hurts took a while to manifest themselves, and once they did, it took me some time to heal from them.
Right. Right. Well, I know that growing up is always a challenge
Hmm.
because you're changing so much. You know, you are trying to come into your own. You're really trying to learn the type of person that you are versus the type of person that you want to be, and then see the gaps, in fact, between them, like between both of those, and how do you close that gap?
Mm.
We oftentimes look at people and we will admire somebody or be inspired by somebody, and we'll say, "Well, I want to be like them," or "I want to do that." But then, in fact, you realize that you have to grow into that person, and that's where our journey begins for us being able to grow beyond what we've been conditioned to in our upbringing to become the person that we really admire and that we really want to use as an inspiration to other people.
Mhm.
So I definitely know how critically important, that is for all of us.
If I could piggyback off of something that you said
Of
about,
course.
people, sometimes people don't know your story. They assume that, you look put together and you have everything figured out, but behind the scenes, there's some things that people don't understand that that person may be going through. And we're really good at masking our emotions when it comes to um, certain things. Because, my mom and my father, they pretty much live by the mantra, what goes on in this house stays in this house type of thing.
Yeah.
And I live by that creed because, like I said, everybody doesn't need to be privy to the things that you're going through,
Right.
but we're really good at masking it up. And sometimes what people don't understand is that the mask cracks, and then
Mm.
people start to tap into that vulnerability.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And you know what? What you just said is a good segue into our next question, because our next question says, many of us carry unhealed parts of our childhood. What are some signs that your inner child is still in control of your decisions today?
Okay. When I was a child, even through my formative years and my teenage years, and even in parts of my early adult life, I
Hmm.
lacked self-confidence. I lacked um, not feeling confident enough, pretty enough, smart enough.
Right.
And how that crept into my adult life is because of the fact that I made some bad choices as I was going into college. I was making choices to be in spaces that I didn't belong in.
Right.
And what ended up happening is, and it wasn't like I got into trouble or anything, but I made some bad choices. I made some bad relationship choices. I made
Right.
some bad friend choices. So
Right.
that's why to this day, my friend circle is very tight. I am very selective about the company I keep.
Mm.
Um, and I feel as though that is very instrumental in the way that I am now. Even though those things that I discussed about the lack of confidence and stuff like that, in not
Hmm.
feeling as though I was good enough, it took me until I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s to realize, you know what, this is it. This is what it is. I'm just gonna have to roll with it. And as
Right.
each year went by and the older I got, because now I'm 63 now, but when
Mhm.
I hit 50, I had the I don't care what you think about me attitude. If you like me, oh well. If you do, that's great. If you don't, I'm fine with it. I'm not going to lose any sleep. But there's something to be said about validation and how the things of your past and your childhood has a lot to do with self validation and how
Right.
people try to feel accepted. But like I said, I made some bad choices, but
Mhm.
ironically enough, I'm grateful for those choices because it helped me to develop into the woman that I am today, and it helped me to know what I would not tolerate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we all can have that story where, we've made decisions, and in fact, we made choices, but those decisions, those choices, and the consequences have shaped who we are today. I oftentimes share, especially when I'm talking to young people, and when I say young, I'm talking about high school age people, about, and I don't give them all the sort of details, but about how I became a father at 17, and what that really forced me to grow up. I mean, I
Mm,
knew that I knew that I had somebody that was depending on me, and I knew that I couldn't just just mess my life up and just kind of take my time to figure things out. I had to figure things out because I had someone that was looking to me for provision. And so, but and I've oftentimes shared the fact with my oldest son that that was not my choice for him to be born. In fact, the way he was under those conditions, but I also helped him to understand that he wasn't a mistake, and
mm,
that he has been the fuel for me to make something of my life. And I thank him for that. And I
mhm,
have let him know. So, again, we make decisions that have consequences, but the it's not the fact that we fall down, it's do we get up? And what do we do?
mhm.
And what have we learned? Because I tell people I either win or I learn. It's not a loss unless you leave the lesson. And so learning those lessons. And that's why this podcast is help elevate and learn, because there's a process that we can go through to better ourselves and also the world around us. So our
I
third
totally
question.
agree with you on that one. That you said a mouthful there, boy.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So the next question is, how can someone begin to recognize the difference between reacting from their inner child and responding as their mature adult self?
Well, I have to say that, you know, when girls and boys, men and women, they move differently.
Hmm.
Some women are very reactive, and all it takes is a trigger. So, something that is said, the way in which you interact with somebody, it triggers something that happened from someone's past. But the
Hmm.
defining moment for that person, when they determine that they've overcome that, is how they react. Like you said, if the
Right.
16, 17-year-old you, if someone said once the same statement to your 25-year-old self or your 30-year-old self, you would have to think about, okay, how is this reaction going to really benefit me in the end? You know,
Right.
and I tell my kids all the time, I said, it is so important not to be reactionary when it comes to particular things. Sometimes you have to take a pause, whether you are, on the playground, whether you are on the
Hmm.
basketball court, or whether you're in a corporate office space. The
Right.
inner child in you is triggered by something that someone said, especially if someone feels disrespected. They feel like they have to go above and beyond to assert themselves as being
Right.
respected, but yet it doesn't take all that. I am a person that believes in moving in silence. Sometimes moving in silence is just as loud as someone yelling at you. Um, I could tell you for a fact that my husband, when I'm quiet, when something is not quite right and I'm
He's
quiet and I don't
he's
respond,
he's scared.
it doesn't I won't say that he's scared, but it gets his attention.
Okay, gotcha.
When I always say a silent woman is a dangerous woman, because especially, and I don't mean that in a bad way or to
Right,
go out and
right,
commit a crime or anything like that. But when I say dangerous, I mean psychologically you are messing with someone's mind when they're waiting for a reaction, and when you're silent, they're like, "Oh shoot, she's not saying anything. This can't be good." And
right,
that,
right,
and that,
right.
and like I said, I can say this, I can say these things because my husband and I have been married for 30 years. So
Okay.
we know each other's movements, and we know what buttons not to push. The button
Mhm.
not to push with me is if you say something that doesn't sit well with me, and instead of me getting combated and yelling and screaming, I just stay silent. And my silence is what gets his attention. And he's like, okay, I need to make this right, because clearly I struck a nerve and she's not talking. She's not engaging. She's not yelling. She's silent.
Right,
That makes him nervous. It's not like I'm going to go out and do something crazy, but my
right.
silence is deafening for sure. So, getting back to your initial question, sometimes it doesn't require a whole bunch of action. Sometimes when a person is triggered by something, their
Hmm.
silence is saying a whole lot.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know about you, but when somebody keeps asking you, "You okay? You okay? You okay?" You say that repetitively to the point where you're just kind of poking the bear, waiting for them to say, "No, I'm not okay. Leave me alone." But sometimes you have to really read the room.
Right,
You have to really read the room when it comes to certain things. But yeah, I definitely think that there's ways in which you don't have to be reactionary when you're triggered. People don't need to see that side of you. But
right,
when you're younger, you don't know how to rein that in, if that makes
right,
sense.
right. Yeah, it does absolutely. And I've oftentimes said that we don't have first reactors, we have first responders,
Right.
and those responders are trained to deal with certain situations. They go through training, they run exercises on, okay, what happens in a car accident, what happens in a snowstorm, what happens in a hurricane or a man-made disaster, a terrorist attack. They go through all these scenarios and they have a response for them.
Hmm.
But when you have a reaction, that's just a knee jerk, a gut feeling. And oftentimes, and I've said this before, and I've actually gotten some it made people chuckle, but I tell them, I said, never let your emotions drive. They're not covered on your insurance.
I'm a steal that. Oh, I
Because
love that. Oh my goodness.
so
You
many
are you are
people,
spot on with that. Yep.
yep, in fact, so many people allow their emotions, and it's like having a 5-year old in the booster seat in the back of your car. Get out, and you hand them the keys, and they climb in the front seat and they drive, and they're just tearing up stuff. They're running over mailboxes. They side swiping cars and stuff. They put the car in the ditch, and then once it's crashed, they get out of the driver's seat, crawl back in the back, crawl back in the back, put themselves in the booster seat, and say, "You got to deal with the fallout." And that's what
So
happens
you
when we
I
go
need you to
ahead.
repeat that. I need you to repeat that quote one more time. Don't let
Okay.
what your
Never let your emotions drive. They're not covered on your insurance.
Oh yeah, I'm stealing
And that's
this.
Dr. Sakona Prince, by the way.
Yes, I'll put you
At
I'll
least
give
give
you
me credit the
credit.
first couple of times.
Oh no. I'll take stuff, but I'll give credit where credit's due. I love that
Okay.
though.
All right. Yeah. And I had like there was a guest on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she actually said something that I thought was so phenomenal because in the way that the question is actually worded, it's like it's either one or the other. as far
Mhm.
as like reacting from your inner child or responding from your inner adult. And she actually said, well, it's really both because normally our first response is from an emotional standpoint. Our feelings are hurt. We feel like disrespected. In fact, we're actually scared, or we feel silenced or shut down. But then she said, I will check with my inner child and see, okay, what does my inner child need? Does my inner child need somebody to speak up for it? Instead of throwing a tantrum and raising your voice and yelling and screaming, she said, okay, I got this. And then her inner adult will address the situation from a mature standpoint as opposed to from a triggered and a reactionary standpoint. And when she said that, I was like, that is so, excuse me, like that is so profound because we can't necessarily separate our
Yeah.
emotions, but we can tailor our response instead of having a reaction. And that's where I came with the quote, never let your emotions drive because they are just going to react.
And
It's
that's what
going
an
to
accident does. It's a
it,
reaction. Yep.
exactly. So
So
yeah.
I have to say though, honestly, I mean, for myself personally, I
Mm-hmm.
know that when I find myself triggered by something, I will, like I said, I'll be silent because I'm processing what's going on.
Right.
But then I'll say, you know what? I need a minute. I need a minute. I'll
Okay.
be right back. Now,
Okay.
especially in the workspace,
Mm-hmm.
because you can have an opinion, but you have to be selective about the opinion that you give. Because remember, and my colleagues laugh at me all the time when I say this. I say, listen, I'm gonna say this, and I'm not gonna say it in mixed company. I said, because what you're not about to do is you're not gonna put a box on my desk telling me to clean my desk out and show me the door. That's not happening. So
Okay.
you're absolutely right about that because you have to give thought to how how is this helping me, number one. Number
Right.
two, is this person doing this to get a rise out of me, to prove a
Mm-hmm.
point, to say, oh yeah, see, I knew you were like that, and sometimes people are pleasantly surprised when I have responses to certain things. They'll
Right.
say to me, well, I didn't expect that from you. And I said, yeah, because I've come to a place in my life that I choose peace every day. I am
Mm.
not going to allow anybody to take me backwards. And with the inner child experience for me, I had to come to grips with that because, like I said, I had to be okay with not um, being popular.
Right.
I had to be okay not being seen. I had to be okay with just who I am. And, you know, I feel empathy for the generation that's coming up now because they have so many challenges. So many
Right.
challenges. And it's just like it's in a box and they don't know what to do with it. And it's just like it's almost like it's like somebody throws like one of those little firecrackers and to get a rise out of you. And I just
Mm-hmm.
feel like that this generation right now is they're heading down the wrong road in some cases because they allow situations to dominate. Like the other night, there was a shooting not too far from where I live.
Mm-hmm.
These young men, they had to be teenagers. I don't know, teenagers, up, whatever, but needless to say, they knocked on the window of the person's house that they were getting ready to shoot. And after they did that, they just let out a round of bullets into the house. The young man got injured. He got shot in both of his legs. So you look at stuff like that and it what it tells me is that there's something in them that's not healed and there's something that's broken that's causing them to put themselves in a position where they can harm another human being, hurt people.
Right.
So I'm really glad that the young man is still recovering, but
Mm-hmm.
those are the examples of an inner child. Some of these kids don't even get a chance to be a child.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that that's another podcast for another day. But they've been
Right.
forced to grow up in a society where things are expected of them that they're not ready to really receive. So that's why when I led with the girls versus boys thing, some kids move differently and they process differently. I know that that's probably a roundabout way to answering your question, but here we are.
That's true. That's so true. So, in your experience, what role does forgiveness of self and others play in the healing and maturing process?
Wow.
Do we need to go that hour?
No, it's not that. It's just one of those things where it's like, I need to process what he just said. Honestly, I'm going to tell you, forgiveness for me happened with the bad choice that I was referring to when I was in my
Hmm.
20s.
Right.
I was in a relationship with someone and they hurt me terribly.
Mm.
And what ended up happening is that, you know, how sometimes people tend to venture off to where they think the grass is greener, but they've realized later on that the grass still needs to be cut. Well,
Right.
this person ended up coming back round after he realized that the grass wasn't green, it was brown, and it needed to be cut and nurtured. And I invited him to dinner. And he came over to my apartment and we had dinner together. And once I was able to release that, I was able to forgive him. We actually went out and I was nervous about it actually because it was just like this is the first time that I'm actually in a space with a person who hurt me. But one thing I will tell you about me, once a person is out of my system, that is it. There is no backseas. I don't go back to once what once was. And you know, I know people say that you should give people second chances, but once you hurt me to the point where I was hurt at that time of my life, there was no backseas. I forgave him and we were able to be civil with each other. But I'm thankful for that experience because, as I mentioned earlier, it helped me to know what not to expect and what not to accept. Excuse me. So that's an example of forgiveness for me because this person actually was my first love. I
Mm.
was engaged to this gentleman and you know, he broke my heart. And like I said, once I was able to realize that I'm not giving my energy to this anymore.
Hmm.
And you know how it is when everybody in the room knows what's going on except for you. That's what happened in this situation. Everyone
Yeah.
around me knew what was happening except for me. And unfortunately, that's what made it hurt even more because it just did not, it's bad enough to deal with it. But when you have people around you that already know, well, girl, I tried to tell you, but I wanted to tell you, but
Right.
I hate those scenarios. But anyways, that to me is my pivotal forgiveness moment of many. Um, because of the fact that it was so real and so raw that I had to really find it in my heart to really get past it. And like I said, um, I don't know where he is in life right now, but I'm thankful for the experience because it taught me a very valuable lesson.
Hmm.
Um, and it helped me to realize that I'm better than this and that I didn't I had to learn how to value myself as a woman a lot more
That part.
because of that time in my life. But that was a real strong act of forgiveness for me. My brothers and my family were very happy that the relationship did not happen. They were glad that we broke the engagement because they too were a part of the nucleus of people who knew, and they saw things that I didn't see. I had blinders on. I didn't. I just saw what I wanted to see.
Right, right. So, what practical daily habits or practices help nurture both healing the inner child and strengthening the inner adult?
That's an easy one for me. Um, my family, number one.
Okay.
Um, you know, and I'm going to also say when my mother introduced me to God,
Okay.
she started sending me to Sunday school with this lady, Miss Evelyn. And I never
Hmm.
could understand why she was sending me to Sunday school with this lady and she wasn't coming. But I understand now that she was introducing me to God and introducing me to my what was to become my relationship with God. Now,
Hmm.
I I went to a Baptist church
Right.
and went to Sunday school, went to vacation Bible school, the whole nine.
Right.
And then, got grown, started thinking I could do everything big enough and bad enough to do.
Yeah.
And then, God being who he is, waited patiently for me to get my life together. Come on back. I'm waiting for you. I've been waiting for you to come on back through.
Right.
Um, but I have to say, because of the introduction of Christianity in my life at a young age and being reconnected with my Christianity in my adult life, I think and I believe and I know that I would not be able to have withstood any of the things that I have dealt with in my adult life because God has always been the center. Now, sometimes I get off the exit sometimes, but have to get back on the highway.
Right.
But for the
Right.
most part, that relationship and that introduction led me to realize you can go out here and be as big and bad and as accomplished as you want to, but
Hmm.
nothing happens without God allowing it to happen. And I think that in the scheme of everything, where I am now in my life, I think that sometimes you have to go through a healing process and a hurt process to understand just how much you need something.
Yeah.
And you need someone or you need whatever that it thing is for you. You have to go through some things because if things were made easy for us, then we wouldn't appreciate the things that we have. If we were given everything we wanted and everything just kind of fell into place, we wouldn't really work hard. One of the things that I've learned is, there are people that walk around and they have a chip on their shoulder, but then you wonder how that chip got there.
Right. Right.
But that chip is, believe it or not, uh, helping them to evolve into the person that they are to become. And a lot of people don't view it that way. But having a chip on your shoulder doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. It just means that they're a work in progress and they got to go through some things. And once they come out on the other side, they'll appreciate the fact, well, if I hadn't gone through this, then I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't have made it to the other side.
Right. Right. And that's so true. We have to make sure that we factor all of that in for us to be able to grow. I
Hmm.
mean, it's critical and it's a part of our growing process. So, yeah, there has to be that part that we actively participate in as opposed to just passively allowing life to happen to us. So, we have to definitely be intentional. All right. So, can you share a personal breakthrough moment when you realized that you were no longer controlled by past wounds, but guided by maturity?
Being able to know the power of my voice was very
Okay.
pivotal for me. The power of my voice was not in the way that you think, but the power of my voice means to me being able to create boundaries, being able to say no and be perfectly okay with it, not
Okay.
allowing people to take advantage of the person and the vulnerabilities that I may have, or my goodness or lack thereof, we'll have to say sometimes, but knowing that I have the power to change the narrative of who I'm around, who I love, who I choose to share space with, and just knowing that I have the power to do whatever it is I set my mind to, and I don't have any limitations. Um, I reference my parents a lot because there's a lot of, inner child things and sayings and stuff like that that always resurface themselves. But I was having a very pivotal moment as a teenager. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I Here goes another story. I was a cheerleader and high school, and I was the only freshman on an all varsity squad. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm like rah rah, great. Anyway, so I was getting ready for a game one night, and I was looking in the mirror, and I said to my mother, I said, "Mom, why don't people see me? And why aren't I good enough?" And my mother, she turned me around. She said, "Don't you ever say that to me again." And that resonated with me because she was like saying to me, "Don't you dare believe that you're not good enough.
Right.
You are a beautiful young woman." And then she ended the conversation by saying, "Women are the most powerful species in the world. They can have anything they want once if they set their mind to it." And that
Right.
resonated with me up until this day. I tell that to my daughter. I tell that to young girls who I mentor, or young girls who are looking or seeking my advice about something. You are a powerful species. You can have anything you want that you set your mind to it. You just have to know how to play your cards. And those inner child moments, like what I just shared, is another factor as to having that mom or that auntie or that grandma or that grandpa or that dad kind of pouring into you and
Mm-hmm.
thinking, they don't know what they're talking about. They're not going through what I'm going through. But then you have a chance to reflect and think about it and realize that that mom or that dad or that influence was setting you up for success by letting you know it's not going to be this way always. You're having a bad time right now, but things are going to change. Nothing remains the same. And I think that a lot of people get hung up on that moment and they don't realize there it's like a fun it's like a funnel. They're like, I'm never going to get away from this. I'm never going to get away from this situation. And realizing that once you come out of it on the other side, again, it's like, oh, it really wasn't that bad. I was making too much of it. But when you're in the moment, when you're in the thick of it as an inner
Mm-hmm.
child, everything seems much bigger than what it actually is.
That's so, so true. Well, listen, our last question here says, what encouragement would you give someone who feels stuck in old patterns and unsure if real healing is possible for them?
Do it scared. And
Do it
don't be
scared.
afraid, to fall and fail forward. Because as you mentioned before, it's not the falling that defines you, it's the getting up that defines you.
Exactly.
So that's
Exactly.
why doing it scared is something that people just have to take the band-aid off and just do it scared.
That's so, so true. Well, listen, if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, how would they do that?
Oh boy. So if you want to get in contact with me, you can go to my website, iamreginamartin.com, or that is my website where I take consultations and I have online courses that I'm offering now. And if you'd like to connect with me through Facebook, you can connect with me through regina.martin.106, or you could just write Regina Martin M.Ed when you go in the search bar for Facebook. And my Instagram is also regina.martin.106. So you can always reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. And I would love to be able to work with anybody who is willing to work with me.
Okay. All right. Well, in fact, with that being said, we want to come to the end of this amazing podcast. But I oftentimes close my podcast out with my sizzle reel. And I'm telling you, if you don't know, I also do personal development and leadership development. I speak on both, but I'm also a coach as well. So listen, until next time, we will definitely see you on the other side. Wait a minute. Oh, we have a comment here. This is my wife, Ilana. She says, good evening. And she also says, so true, is definitely a process. We want to thank you for chiming in on that. So with that being said, like I said, we are going to end the podcast, but we will see you next week. Well, my name is Sakoni Prince of SakoniPrince.com, where we make motivation personal by introducing you to yourself. I'm a motivational speaker, a trainer, and a coach. I'm also an author. I help people in the area of personal development and leadership development because I believe that you can't lead others until you learn how to lead yourself. But once you learn how to lead yourself, the next logical step is that you lead other people.
Sakoni Prince is the best keynote I've ever seen.
He really encouraged me so much.
He has this ability of seeing in people what they don't see in themselves.
He was so confident. When he was coming to the stage, you could see like, wow, this is a lion.
Any actor that's going for a role, they do a case study. If I'm going to be a fry cook, I go to a restaurant and watch people that are fry cooks. If I'm going to be a mob boss, I go and, well, maybe not go to where the mob, but you take some notes as to what they do. Our children are watching. What can they reference when they step into our shoes? I do what I do because I believe that people have truly yet to understand their purpose. Once you know who you are, nothing can stop you. But until you know who you are, anything can. So my goal is to really help people to understand their purpose and their calling. And oftentimes they have the answers themselves, but they're not asking the right questions. So I help people to get to that place to where they look at themselves, they step back and they see how they've been a help to those around them and what really drives them. And from that, they really understand the value of it. They learn to value their value and see what value their value brings. Because a lot of people, they have yet to do that. Until you know who you are, anything can stop you. But once you know who you are, nothing can stop you. I want you to understand that you are blessed. That you are blessed to be a blessing. That there is somebody looking up to you. They're looking at you. Don't ever forget that. Because if you ever do, you're going to leave them without a mind.
I've learned so much and I've experienced a lot of interactions with people.
The practical approach, like you can't just sit down there. You have to walk up to an opportunity. Sometimes you have to grab the opportunity. Sometimes you have to fight for the opportunity. There's so much life lessons.
I think from today onwards, I'll stretch out and reach to higher levels.